Hey guys, it's Antonia. So I wanted to make sure that I added my voice to the conversation, considering that Intuitive Awakening is a group that I moderate. It feels like today the group is primarily self-moderating, which is awesome. Brian, our resident ESFJ, made some really great points about how the majority of our communication is nonverbal. Intuitive Awakening is like any other place. It's going to have some drama to it because, again, we're in a most of our communication is nonverbal, especially things like intent, like our tonality, our voice intonation specifically. Just the perspective that we're coming from becomes so much clearer when you can look somebody in the eye. And you can't do that on Facebook. You can't do that in a text-based forum. One of the things that I'm struggling with is that my ego is tied into Intuitive Awakening being like the one safe space on the internet where people don't have to deal with drama, and that's just an unreality. So we're going to have moments of some drama, and that's just reality, and that's okay. Especially since Intuitive Awakening, as I think I've probably said many, many times, Intuitive Awakening is intended to be a personal development group, not strictly a Myers-Briggs group. Myers-Briggs is one of the models and tools we use for personal development. It's not intended to be a Myers-Briggs group, though. It's intended to be a safe space for intuitives to have conversations that are around being intuitive and intuitive struggles, intuitive support, and also what are our passions, our purposes, and our missions? What are the things that we're trying to accomplish in the world? And how can we share what we're working on with each other? And how can we support each other in the best way that we know how? So I want to reference the I want to reference the Facebook post that basically started this all, which was the one around higher quality conversation in Intuitive Awakening. And then actually I think that post had two elements to it. I think one of the elements was what kind of conversation are we having on Intuitive Awakening, and then also what is an Intuitive Awakening movement. And the kind of conversation that we would like to see on Intuitive Awakening is the kind that makes everybody like up their game. How do we show up as the best versions of ourselves possible? How do we make sure that we're focused on personal development as opposed to just simply talking about Myers-Briggs? And how do we bring our best self forward? People are going to come at very stratified levels of their development. People's egos are going to be at very different places. And so the kinds of conversations that we want are the ones that encourage us to be better versions of ourselves, encourage us to up our game. And I want to make a comment or a note that one of the things that we can do to increase the quality of our communication just like immediately is to tone down the defensiveness. And if somebody gets triggered, it's hard for them to do that because they're already escalated themselves. But if we could de-escalate that, if we can, whenever we feel a trigger, whenever we feel defensive, if we can use that as an opportunity to reflect back what's going on for us. Defensiveness is a signal that something's coming up for you, and it could be that you're being attacked in the outside world. That could be legitimate, but in a Facebook forum, that is unlikely. It is unlikely that you're actually being threatened by another person. So when you feel yourself getting triggered or defensive, my recommendation is to use that as a canary in the coal mine for yourself and your own identity and your own ego work. Projecting your feelings of defensiveness onto another person, assuming that they're responsible for your feelings, it's a level of development that we all have to go through, and it's also a perfect opportunity to ask yourself, why are you handing that power over to another person? We really need to hold space. We need to not project our concepts of intent onto other people. Intuitive Awakening will be a bastion of amazingness on the internet. It will be one of the best places to go visit if we can prevent ourselves from getting triggered by what we see as perceived slights. Like name calling, of course, obviously is massive escalation. Like saying somebody else is doing something to you or being offensive. There are ways to reflect things back to each other, mirror each other's behavior back to each other, that is done with kindness and compassion. And that's really, I guess that's the underpinning of everything, is are we coming at this with a place of compassion, love for each other as fellow human beings, as fellow intuitives that have gone through similar things as us, or as the sensors in the group who are reaching out to an intuitive group. The sensors in the group are incredibly prized because they're reaching out to us even though it's Intuitive Awakening, and they're here anyway, and they're here to support us, and that's amazing. So we come to the entire group in a place of compassion and love.